Happy Wednesday, everybody. So Violet Affleck, the daughter of Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner, has turned 18, and she is already going viral for testifying in front of the LA County Board, making an emotional plea for mask mandates. She wants everybody to wear a mask. Plus, we've got George Clooney, who has penned an op-ed for the New York Times, making a similarly emotional plea for Joe Biden to step down. But first, last week it was, she's a flat earther. But today, the Zionist media is trying to convince the public that I'm worse than a flat earther. I'm, you guessed it, a Holocaust denier. When will they ever grow tired of these games? I know that I won't. That's what's coming up on Candace. My poor PR guy, he wakes up in the morning, he's got tons of text messages from journalists asking for clarity. Is it true? Did Candace say this? How could she say this? And everybody knows what's happening. They're watching the show, journalists, every minute of the show, and they're looking for just a 4-second clip that they can take out of context and spin it and send it around to all of their journalist friends. And we have a cell of Zionist media. We have people that are working to further the interests of Israel, and that is why they keep taking me out of context. But I literally don't care. I just hope they understand that I'm built different.
Don't care. Built different. Don't care.
I really do love that clip of Andrew Tate, but it is very true. I just know that I was built for this moment in time. I have the courage, and I feel so encouraged. That's what's weird, is how happy I am every single day. And this morning, I started my day by having a very long interview with Russell Brand. And I hadn't been on his show in quite some time. And it was really great to speak to him because our journeys have converged in a variety of strange ways. Russell Brand was the interview that I was giving all the way in London on the night that I met my husband. I was notoriously 3 hours late when I met my husband because I was doing Russell Brand's podcast. And at the same moment, we have both been compelled toward faith, like understanding that the politics is downstream from the faith conversation, and the left versus right, Republican versus Democrat, the Tory versus Labor. It means nothing if you don't understand this has always been about good versus evil. And we had an amazing conversation, and I'm telling you, it's going to break the internet. People will be extremely upset. I think he said it's coming out in a few days, but I did want to bring you a moment from it because I can do that. I can give you guys a little premiere of that conversation. Take a listen. These are the bad guys. The Christians are always the bad guys. Every time you learn about Christian history, we're always the bad guys. You learn about the Spanish Inquisition, we're lied about what actually took place then because it makes Catholics and Christians look bad. We're told that about the Dark Ages and then the Age of Enlightenment. The Dark Ages weren't dark. It was an age of remarkable Christian progress, a remarkable Christian experimentation. And so I am just very passionate now about using my platform to awaken Christians around the world, because I believe that when Christians are awakened, a lot of the evils in the world will stop.
It feels to me that perhaps some of the things you are describing, and you're describing a lot of things, Candace, are perhaps because in some ways Christianity, through its various forms of institutionalization, became meshed onto power, whether that's through Roman Catholicism and the establishment of the Vatican, or even the conversion of Constantine. It seems that the point that power and Christianity melded together, political power, I suppose I mean, that there was a complexity that means, at least now, that we truly are living in an individualistic, materialistic, progressive, and late rational, post-Enlightenment age, that Christianity is sort of in the quagmire with old discarded ideas, somehow replaced with some of the forms of progressivism that you in your previous incarnation focused on quite heavily. And I suppose there's an assumption that Christianity doesn't require any protection, doesn't require any special spaces. I've heard people say, for example, that, like this return to Christianity that seems to be happening culturally, this new intrigue and excitement, a kind of a new awakening, a sort of what might be what precedes a second coming or a rapture, is an attempt by the culture to reboot the last thing that works. True Christianity, Candace, would by its nature be anti-establishment, somehow challenging to people in positions of power and to powerful institutions. It seems that you've embraced this aspect of Christianity, but when you look at the modern political stage with like what's happening in my country, a new centralist, authoritarian, globalist government coming to power with an extraordinary portion of the votes, what's happened in France, a kind of machination and alloying of political groups in order to maintain Macron's centrist, authoritarian, globalist power, that what is required is a kind of inversion, a new radicalism. And yet the only type of radicalism that's sort of discussed is either technological radicalism and advanced citizen management, or maybe Islam. I wonder what you think about the necessity for this new Christian awakening to become politicized, or at least to become a challenge to existing political power.
You'll be able to hear my answer to that when he drops the interview, but here's what I will say. I'm very aware of why I'm being attacked. Obviously, they don't think I'm a Holocaust denier, no more do they believe that I am a flat earther, but they understand that I am talking about Christian concepts. I am talking about Christian history. I'm talking about the fact that Christians were mass murdered across Europe, and then Americans were sold lies about that murder. And so they've taken out of context a clip because what they don't want people to see is the BBC documentary that I went over in that episode, The Savage Peace, learning that German civilians, German Christians were murdered in mass by the Allies. This has been hidden. Most Americans don't know it, and most Americans have been shocked to learn it. And so they want me gone because, then what falls apart, of course, is this entire narrative that we're always fighting the bad guys. Here's what I believe. I believe it is and always has been a holy war. I believe that there are spiritual forces at play that are trying to make Americans atheistic and make Americans believe in nothing other than government, more governance as a solution to everything. And the more I look into history and start examining it through the lens of Christianity, I am shocked by what I discover. Let's talk about World War II. Ready? I actually think that if I were to write a book about America, American involvement in the history of war, in the history of World War II, I would entitle it, Oops, we accidentally bombed Christians again. And the subtitle would be, but it's an accident. It was a total accident, I swear. Or it didn't matter, I swear. Or, but we had to do it, I swear. Yeah, unbelievably, when you start looking through the lens of Christianity, you begin to ask yourself a question, how many times can you accidentally bomb a Christian monastery or a Christian cathedral before we're allowed to wonder if maybe, it wasn't an accident at all, if maybe it was an actual strategy, if maybe Christians in the West were propagandized severely by Edward Bernays, as Sigmund Freud's nephew, as we were during World War II, to permit the mass atrocities that were enacted against Christians in the East. I'm just asking a question. And I've been asking those questions for a while now. I'm now just asking them out loud. It began really for me when I was on that charter pilgrimage. And you remember I did that 3-day pilgrimage with Catholics, and we marched to Charter, the Charter Cathedral, that is. It's got a wonderful story. In August of 1944, American forces were approaching Charters, and they believed, because of bad intelligence, that the cathedral's towers and steeples were being used by the enemy. And somebody that was in their ranks said, okay, I actually don't know if this intel is good. They were told that building must be destroyed. There are Nazis in there. But before the bombardment was ordered, Colonel Wellborn Barton Griffith Jr., he's a hero, volunteered himself because he felt so conflicted about that order. He said, I will sneak through the German lines to see if this intel is true or not. He, and he took another troop along with him, successfully evaded the enemy, climbed the towers of the cathedral, and confirmed that there were no enemies at all. No. So the bombardment order was rescinded. The Charter Cathedral still stands. But to be clear, that is not the story for the majority of the cathedrals that were bombarded throughout World War II. Here's another story, and you may have heard it. If you're Catholic, you probably know it. Monte Cassino in Italy. Same thing happened. The Allied forces were given intelligence that the Germans were going to use Monte Cassino. What? That bombard it. It was ambiguous information regarding the Germans' location that was believed to be valid. However, up to the last days before the bombing, Martino Matronolo, who was a monk who remained at Monte Cassino, asserted that no, it is not being used by anybody. No, this is just our monastery with a tremendous history behind it. But guess what? Despite the fact that an American contested and said we absolutely should not bomb this, it still happened. They bombed the abbey, and monks were trapped in it while it was bombed. But don't worry, guys. Guardian headline has got this covered. Look, here it is. Error led to the bombing of Monte Cassino. Monastery destroyed after translation slip by the British intelligence officer. It just kept happening. It was an error. It was bad intel, and the translation it didn't make it over in the correct way. And I guess the American troops couldn't understand the British accent or something. Of course, the theater in Cologne was not as lucky. That was also bombed by the Allies in 1944, as was the Königsberg Cathedral, obliterated by the Soviets in 1944. And nobody cares because I guess they were Germans. I'm sure it was all just a coincidence, by the way, when in Dresden, as Christians were getting ready to celebrate Ash Wednesday, they were literally turned into ashes. What happened in Dresden was a war crime. There's no other way to look at it. It was an absolute war crime. And yeah, again, just a coincidence that it was Ash Wednesday that this happened. And of course, if you talk about Nagasaki, people get really upset on Twitter. Oh no, Zionist media is going to come for me hard because how dare you, Candace? How dare you talk about Nagasaki? Because that too was just things happened. You know, they were going to bomb somewhere else and then they don't know who gave the orders, but somebody said do Nagasaki instead. So on a cloudy morning, on August 9th, 1945, a B-29 bomber named Boxcar of the U.S. Army Air Force flew over the Japanese port city of Nagasaki and dropped a radioactive plutonium implosion bomb 300 yards from the second largest Roman Catholic cathedral in the Far East. That was called Urakami Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception of the Blessed Virgin Mary. So yes, at 11:02 a.m., when the bomb was dropped on the cathedral, Nagasaki was the most Christian city in Japan. And 2/3 of the Catholic population perished that day in that city. But again, they had to do that to end the war. And it was just, they bombed there as opposed to somebody else. Don't ask any further questions. In fact, if you do, you're a monster. I guess the priests in Hiroshima were luckier. Here's an aerial view of the Lady of the Assumption Church after the August 6th, 1945 bomb drop. Yep, another nuke dropped. Unfortunately, a small group of priests can be seen standing in the road in front of their church. Despite being at the epicenter of the bombing, having just completed their mass on Sunday, these Jesuit priests survive. But again, don't think too hard about that. Bad intel and accidents happen all the time. In fact, they're still happening. It's so weird in Canada. Have you heard about this? Do you guys remember when 3 years ago there was that major story that broke in Canada? And basically the left went crazy because it allowed for them to just be openly prejudiced against Christians. They said that they had found a mass grave that was containing the remains of Indigenous children that they allegedly discovered beneath a Catholic church, right? So they were like, oh, this used to be a government boarding school run by the Catholic Church. We just dug up these bones of the Indigenous people. So now we realize that Catholics were mass murdering Indigenous people. Guess what? That entire story turned out to be a hoax. I think the term that people like to use is a blood libel against Christians. And guess what happened because of that blood libel against Christians? Again, this is just 3 years ago in Canada. At least 85 Catholic churches across Canada were destroyed by arson. They were vandalized, desecrated, and the Canadian political party cheered it on. They were like, yeah, get those Catholics. 85 Catholic churches in Canada have since been destroyed on the basis of a lie that the mainstream media allowed to run freely. Think about that. Think about that. They even raised money supporting the investigation of the mass graves. It was all a lie. It was all a hoax. And nobody cares because it's Christians. And Christians, you are supposed to be subjugated. You are supposed to do the bidding for other religions. In fact, you should be doing the absolute most for other faiths. And if you start speaking out about your faith, if you start recognizing this trend of bad intel and Catholic churches then subsequently being bombed and destroyed and shelled, well, that would make you a problem. That would make you even plausibly a flat-earthing, Holocaust-denying idiot. So don't do that, Christians. Don't start looking at your own history and getting vocal about it. That would make you me. Speaking of Christianity, if there is one thing that we do fight for as Christians, it is life. And that is something that Russell Brand and I discussed. We talked about abortion. We talked about what it means to be pro-life today. Well, according to a recent report, Planned Parenthood continues to rake in billions despite dwindling clients. The biggest takeaway is that Planned Parenthood is generating vast profits, including millions in taxpayer funding. With preborn, that is you and me, we are actively given the opportunity to steal their clientele, meaning we get to rescue the babies that they are trying to kill. Preborn operates on a very slim budget, rescuing over 200 babies' lives every single day with zero government funding. Preborn's network of clinics are situated in the darkest corners of the nation, competing head-to-head with the abortion giants, and they need our help now more than ever. When you donate $28 to Preborn, you'll offer a free ultrasound to an expectant mother that is caught in a crisis. Because once she hears that heartbeat and sees that precious life, her baby's chance at life doubles. So please sponsor a precious baby's life today. Your tax-deductible gift will go directly towards saving babies' lives. You just dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250 baby, or you can go to preborn.com/Candace. That's preborn.com/Candace. All right, now it's time to get into some stories. Before we get into this first story, we are so close to 2 million subscribers. Hit the subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. Go and support the show by heading to locals.com, finding me, and giving a gift if you can. All right, first up, I would love to speak about Violet Affleck. I would like to talk about the Afflecks in general, and genuinely, I would love to speak to Ben Affleck, but we know it is never going to happen. Hollywood is just a study in demonism. It really is, and I hope now that you're listening to the show, you recognize that and you see the signs everywhere. And I wish I could tell you more about my conversation with Russell Brand, but we specifically talked about Hollywood and how basically whatever the Bible says, they are selling the opposite, right? And it's because they believe ultimately that their God is government. I don't like talking about children on this show, but what I will say is that those children that are put into the public sphere, the children of these Hollywood celebrities, always get coverage, and whatever they're doing seems to be the trend that is being established because people want to be just like them. And the Affleck family, they have one daughter who is, I think, non-binary that came out recently, and she learned to be non-binary because she was hanging out with J-Lo's kid, or she's trans. I can't remember which one it is, but that's going on. And now you have this other daughter who seems to identify as her gender. Her name is Violet Affleck. She just turned 18 years old. And she's getting a bit of press right now because she went down to the LA County Board and she decided to testify on behalf of mask mandates because she believes that mask mandates will keep more people alive. Take a listen to what she had to say.
Violet Affleck, Los Angeles resident, first-time voter, I'm 18. I contracted a post-trial condition in 2019. I'm okay now, but I saw firsthand that medicine does not always have answers to the consequences of even minor viruses. The COVID-19 pandemic has thrown that into sharper relief. 1 in 10 infections leads to long COVID, which is a devastating neurological cardiovascular illness that can take away people's ability to work, move, see, and even think, stands to exacerbate our homelessness crisis, as well as the suffering of many people in our city. It hits communities of color, disabled people, elderly people, trans people, women, and anyone in a public-facing essential job the hardest. To confront the long COVID crisis, I demand mask availability, air filtration, and far UVC light in government facilities, including jails and detention centers, and mask mandates in county medical facilities. We must expand the availability of high-quality free tests and treatment, and most importantly, the county must oppose mask bans for any reason. They do not keep us safer. They make vulnerable members of our community less safe and make everyone less able to participate in Los Angeles together. Thank you.
So I'm going to try to be very kind here. First and foremost, she is 18, and I know that people are absolutely crushing her. I genuinely feel bad for her because she's being raised by two individuals who have given into the whims of Hollywood, obviously, because of the decisions that you can see that this household is making. But the other thing that I want to say is that when you're 18, you do tend to be dumb, right? Like you make decisions and you say things, and the things that you believe at 18, you're not going to believe when you are 35 years old like I am today. And so I try not to hold people to their perspectives when they were 18 because I don't want to be held to the perspectives when I'm 18. And you are sort of whimsical and fantastical, and you believe solutions can be this easy, and genuinely, the majority of kids, probably not her, are coming out of the public school system, and they are being trained to believe, they're propagandized to believe that the government can provide every solution to every problem in society, that all you need is more governance. So I want to really just speak about what she's saying without attacking her as an individual, because she needs time to grow, and she probably needs time to grow outside of Los Angeles County, if we're being honest. And maybe she can take her down here in Tennessee, people who have never been wearing masks like myself, and very much our faith is in God, not in government. And we understand that the government is not what keeps you alive. And also, obviously, what she's missing here is that Fauci came out and said that they made up the whole mask thing. So to speak about what she's actually doing, because that's more important, she's still wearing a mask. And you see these types. Taylor Lorenz is also still wearing a mask. She's a former journalist or a current journalist for Washington Post. And I have actually seen clips of Violet, because of how famous her father is, wearing a mask. And I was wondering in my head, why is she perpetually wearing a mask? And this is what it gets into when we say that you need to recognize that the government basically read the Bible, right? These Satanists read the Bible and they said, how can we recreate this so that people believe that we are the creators, that they come to us for life? We'll tell them the Bible is fake while we actually try to create a system that mimics the Bible by inverting everything in the Bible on its head. So the government is now going to keep you alive, right? And she's so committed to this faith that one of the sacraments is you wear a mask, you cover your face, because the experts, these are all of their little demigods, came to her and told her, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to sacrifice. You're going to sacrifice your face and we'll keep you alive. Again, that science has already been debunked, right? It was never science because it was a faith. This is why I said science has become a faith. People say the correct way to say that is scientism. And I'm like, yeah, well, I think full on science has just become scientism. And you can see how she is committed to this faith. She did what they said, and she won't take the mask off because she's been wearing it for so long. It's become a part of her identity, right? So she is as much of a mask wearer as I am a Catholic, okay? She's committed to this. And so the next thing to show how committed she is to this faith is to go to the government and to make this plea, to publicly please more governance. And no, next time you guys do this, even the people, this is what she's saying, even the people that are not wearing a mask, they must be enforced. There can be no exceptions. Even those 3-month-old crying babies on the plane, mask them up. That's what she's asking for. She's saying there can be no exceptions here. Like we all must be forced to bow our heads and belief and to bend the knee to governance. Like she is subservient to governance. She knows that she believes that is the real God in life. And if only everyone else could see that, the world would be better. That's what she actually believes. It's sick. It is an illness. And unfortunately for her, she's very young. It genuinely is not her fault. And so I wish when people would critique this, they would just critique what she is saying outside of who she is, because she has no idea who she is. She grew up in a cult, and she doesn't even know that it's a cult until she steps outside of the cult. When she steps out of the cult, she'll be able to see things for the first time. And this is very much, by the way, the story of Russell Brand. It's why he's a brilliant person to speak to, because he was in it and now he's out of it. And look at what his life has become since abandoning Hollywood, right? He's talking about freedom. He's talking about real purpose, and he has found God. So it's sad to me when I see this, but it's important to talk about because the public school system exists to create people like Violet. Culture exists, right? To create people like Violet, to tell her which ideas she should have and which sacrifices she can make. And in this instance, her sacrifice is her entire face. And of course, most of us understand that what she's asking for are higher taxes, right? We got to spend more and more of hard taxpayers' money, because obviously that's the solution. We just need to sacrifice more of our hard-earned money. And I think that after everything that we've been through this year, after the inflation that we've seen the last 4 years, and watching our tax-paying dollars fund these endless wars, witnessing the persecution of a political opponent like some banana republic, after witnessing all of that, all of us are wondering, what can we do to defend our hard-earned money? I know what I'm doing. I'm diversifying with gold and silver, the type of money this administration cannot easily control or inflate away. For this show, I have partnered with the top-rated precious metals company, Goldco. Not only is Goldco helping support my new show, but they're also helping me diversify and protect my money from the never-ending wars, debt, and inflation from this government. And right now, they're offering my audience up to a 10% instant match in bonus silver if you qualify, but only while supplies last. So go to CandaceLikesGold.com to learn more. You'll get a complimentary wealth protection kit to arm you with the facts about how precious metals can help you. Just go to CandaceLikesGold.com. That's CandaceLikesGold.com, because that's just really a fun place to go to. I love that. Just love that domain name. So nail in the coffin. George Clooney, he's our resident Hollywood Democrat. He is everywhere he needs to be, at every fundraiser, shaking hands with all the power players, constantly telling us how to vote. He's just in, he's like in the in crowd. I do not trust him at all. And so this is how you really know it's over for Biden, that the decision has been made by the CIA. Then he's just got to step aside, because George Clooney is now jumping ship in the form of a very emotional op-ed that he wrote for the New York Times. And he starts it by telling you that he loves Biden. He writes, "I love Joe Biden as a senator, as a vice president, and as president. I consider him a friend, and I believe in him, believe in his character, believe in his morals. In the last 4 years, he won many of the battles he faced. But the one battle he cannot win is the fight against time. None of us can. It's devastating to say it, but the Joe Biden I was with 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser was not the Joe big effing deal Biden of 2010. I like that because he goes back to 2010. Joe Biden was definitely the same Joe Biden that he was when he ran for president of the United States, but nobody cared. I mean, nobody cared whatsoever. And now they are throwing him under the bus. It's almost making me want to defend Joe Biden, because it's just so obvious. Like, their attacks against him are so obviously planned and coordinated, and they are all being told to do this. You think they just magically found the courage to? Like, he said that he saw Joe Biden at a fundraiser weeks ago. Why didn't he write this op-ed sooner than the debates? That's just out of curiosity. Why didn't he do that? He goes on, he writes, "Was he tired? Yes. A cold? Maybe. But our party leaders need to stop telling us that 51 million people didn't see what we just saw. We're all so terrified by the prospect of a second Trump term that we've opted to ignore every warning sign." Okay, you are just so ridiculous here, George Clooney. No one had more access to Joe Biden than you and Jill, okay? And you, like I said, have been holding his hand. I remember watching these photos that were published of him, and the media at the time reported that his wife, who also is a Democrat resident, as I would say, did not attend the fundraiser because she is upset with him about what's going on with Gaza, right? She thinks that what's going on in Gaza, she has used her platform, Amala, to say that she believes it is a genocide, and so she did not accompany her husband. But her husband went. Her husband spoke to Joe Biden. Her husband realized, as he has known all along, that he was in full mental decline, that he likely has Parkinson's, that he is not able to communicate effectively. And despite this, he did nothing. Because George Clooney has a handler, obviously. There are people that tell these actors and actresses when they are allowed to speak out. Hey, today we need you to promote the COVID vaccine, and they do it, right? Today we need you to love Joe Biden and say he's amazing, and they do it. And at some point, they all got the same message. Okay, Joe Biden's over. It's time to cancel Joe Biden. Be loving in your delivery. And that's what this reads like. It's just George Clooney going for an Oscar, okay? George Clooney doing his best acting job to pretend that he's startled by this, and now it's actually time to acknowledge that what we've all known all along. I'll just read you one more bit of this. Would it be messy? Yes. Democracy is talking about replacing Joe Biden, or Joe Biden stepping down. Would it be messy? Yes. Democracy is messy. But would it enliven our party and wake up voters who long before the June debate had already checked out? It sure would. The short ramp to Election Day would be a benefit for us, not a danger. It would give us the chance to showcase the future without so much opposition research and negative campaigning that comes with these ridiculously long and expensive election seasons. In conclusion, he probably didn't even write this. Because this is a thing, like they have people write articles and they just say, can we put your name on it and send it out? And so this was likely written by somebody in the Biden campaign. George Clooney is one of their homies. They hit him up. They're like, we're going to put your name on this article so that it goes viral and people read it and believe it's your word. And George Clooney says yes, because George Clooney is a puppet of the establishment. That is the reality. There are tons of actors who are, Sean Penn among them. Every person that instantly got on a plane to go hang out with Zelensky in a war zone, because that's totally what actors would do. They're so brave. They would totally risk their lives to go play a song as, what was it? Was it Bono or U2 that went into and were playing a song in the subway? It's a joke. It's just all so performative, but of course it's performative. These are, at the end of the day, they're actors. That's what they do. They continue to act. They acted like he was fine, and now they're being instructed to act like he isn't. And that is what is happening. Now, to the greater American public, it feels like we are taking a step back every month instead of moving forward. The bills are higher than they've ever been, and you feel like what you bring in every month, you then have to swipe. You have to swipe that credit card to cover the difference, and the debt just keeps adding up. But if you own a home, I want you to call my friends at American Financing. They can help you break free from that cycle. American Financing is saving people just like you an average of $854 a month. Think about what you could do with an extra $800 every single month, not having to worry about those minimum monthly payments. And even better, it costs absolutely nothing to find out how much you can save. All it takes is a quick call to American Financing. If you start today, you may be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. You could totally use that break. So call American Financing today and start your journey towards being credit card debt-free. 800-795-1210. That's 800-795-1210. All right, guys, now let's jump into some of your comments. Look, people had a lot of feelings yesterday about me talking about Jordan Peterson. What do you want me to do? I'm obviously reporting on what I'm seeing. It's not my fault, okay, that I am acknowledging that a lot of people who follow Jordan Peterson have broken off from that, men that genuinely believed in him. I mean, you could see the comments. I got my book signed from him, like, what's going on? And a lot of it is because of what's happening on Twitter and Michaela Peterson calling for censorship. This is a person who represents herself as Jordan Peterson's manager, his daughter, and at times his spokesperson. She has called for censorship. That is newsworthy, no matter which way you slice it. And it is not personal. Jordan Peterson has been very nice to me, but we have to talk about that. I need clarity on his perspectives on speech, because that is not what he has been arguing for in the past. And hopefully this is just his daughter speaking on his behalf or speaking, I guess, on the family's behalf. But that still makes me nervous. I want to hear him say he doesn't believe that he does not believe that people should be censored for using the word filth. Anyways, Michaela Peterson instantly commented she was having a spiral on Twitter. She wrote, 1/5 of Americans are prescribed psych meds like my dad was. They are nearly impossible to get off and cause withdrawal. So severe, especially after long-term use, that most people stay on them. I hope you don't ever suffer the way he did coming off of those meds. First and foremost, Michaela, just because I don't live my life and every personal thing that happens to me on the internet, the idea that I don't know anything about drug addiction or I've never lived through anything is crap. It's a horrible way to present your argument. I think every single family, sadly in America, has in some way been impacted by drugs. That's just the reality that we live in. And I am no exception to that rule. Again, just because I don't wear my heart on my sleeve doesn't mean that I haven't lived through a lot of things. I would argue that I've probably lived through more before I turned 10 years old than you've lived in your entire life. That would be my guess. But again, I'm not here to stage a pity party. I'm here to talk about why he is condoning or platforming or not saying something about your extreme calls to censor speech. Those are extreme. We don't stand for that, least of all on the conservative side of things. Vagabond writes, I hope JP sees this and takes you up on your offer, the offer to come sit down and talk about this. As someone who really took what he said to heart when my life was really in a bad place, I have improved my life drastically in part due to him. It hurts to see him fall to the level of baseless gaslighting and name-calling. His daughter's tweets were just so childish. When you will debate and talk to communists, Marxists, Zionists, leftists, Muslim, jihadists, atheists, but not a Christian nationalist, it shows there is a deeper reason at play here. That's a very interesting comment, and I hadn't considered that. And that also could be why people are going, is he just going to protect Zionism and not actually follow what his principles are, which he believes in free speech? He has sat down and spoken to a lot of people with conflicting opinions, and yet he seems to accept, he pretends, I think rather, that like the groypers are, you can't even sit down with a groyper and have a conversation. Groyper, by the way, for those of you that don't know, it's the term that's used to describe people that follow Nick Fuentes. And I actually have no idea why they're called groypers. I can't even give you an explanation for that. But I'm radical when it comes to free speech. I believe that you have to platform even ideas that you believe are horrific and backwards, so you can show the public how horrific and how backwards those ideas are. That's why I'm not afraid of any debate. I just genuinely am not, because I believe that I'm right, and I also have the humility to be wrong. And again, this does not wipe away all of the amazing contributions that Jordan Peterson has made, and he has made plenty. I mean, he has literally radically transformed so many individuals' lives. But if he is not living that, or if something has changed or his perspectives have changed, I think people deserve to know about that, because they have placed so much investment in him. I mean, the reason he is wealthy is because he had these perspectives on speech, when he's talking about how he believes in free speech, how he radically believes in free speech. And so he took money from people that believed in him. And I think if you change a perspective, which you are welcome to do, by the way, you are totally welcome to do that, you at least owe it to your audience to explain why that may be. This person writes, there was never any coming back from give them hell. Give who hell? A population that's already besieged? That's made up of over 50% children. Disgusting. It was a full mask slipping moment that I will never unsee. Yes, as I said, I was just reporting on what happened, and a lot of people who have been very sympathetic to what's going on to the Palestinians were disturbed by that tweet. I think he did actually do a video thereafter saying that, you know, he was being reactive and maybe would have said more in a different way if he had had the opportunity to. But for a lot of people, that left a mark. Lastly, we have from Menect. I'm blowing up on Menect, guys. I'm telling you. I am getting so many messages from you guys every single day. This person writes, hi, I think Dr. Peterson's stance on censorship could be my fault. What? Days before he made his first tweet about troll demons, I had a friend of mine relay an email to JP through Jonathan Pagot offering JP advice for developing sustainable online communities. I was a member of JP's first fan club on Facebook in 2017. He and Michaela were in the group and he loved us. JP witnessed the group's collapse, and I'm sure it broke his heart. My email to JP explained why the group collapsed and how we were able to create and manage a new group, resulting in multiple marriages, including my own, and countless lifelong friendships. The collapse involves a flood of trolls from the Sam Harris Facebook group. It was an actual meme war. I never heard back from JP, but his sudden shift toward censorship days after I sent that email haunts me. I'd be more than happy to forward the original email. Facebook, Battleship, and life-changing communities for context if you'd like. Thank you for all that you do and love you. I don't think it's that. I honestly, genuinely don't think it's you. I don't even believe that he agrees with censorship. Like I said, I think these things are difficult. It's difficult for him to thread what his daughter is saying, who he obviously loves very much, with what he believes, she, his manager. It's just the situation is a bit incestuous. And I obviously don't mean that in a sexual way. I mean, just like, you know, you're working with your family. It's like an incestuous situation. So it's just a difficult needle for him to thread. And I think he's choosing anger as a response because people are mad at his daughter. And I think it's hard not to react when people you feel are attacking your family members. But as I said, he has a platform in large part because of people that have made investments in him. And that's the only reason that we should hold his feet to the fire. I don't live in a cult. I don't work in a cult. And again, we only cover Jordan Peterson. People were like, are you covering him because you're upset about? No, Jordan Peterson was lovely to me. We covered him because he was trending all weekend over this censorship call from his daughter. It's a newsworthy item. It's a very newsworthy item in America, especially where we believe in free speech. So people that are Jordan Peterson fans all across the world who don't have the same attachment to free speech, you guys don't have these First Amendment rights, will never understand how significant they are to the American consciousness. We will always attack. We will always be on attack when there are any calls for censorship in any capacity. And so these, and I wouldn't even say attacks, but these criticisms of Jordan Peterson are actually coming from a place of concern. And again, I will say I would welcome him on the show anytime to have a conversation because he's a very kind man who has contributed a lot of good things to our societies, particularly to men. But I saw a lot of women saying, he changed my life too. So yes, to you ladies as well. All right, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for today. We covered so much. I'll see you tomorrow.